Welcome to the Prompton Podcast, the podcast where we separate market myths and mortgage meltdowns and decode the fine print of real estate so you don't have to. I'm your host, James Walker, here to guide you through the twists and turns and occasional real estate horror stories. Ladies and gentlemen, buyers and sellers of all ages, welcome to the Prompton Podcast. We are back again for another riveting round of conversation and talks with my main man, Brian Higgins, and the bad boy of mortgages, James DeVust.
Yeah, you're getting better. You're getting closer.
I always want to add like another word in there, like James Van Doost or
Just do hospital.
I want to do a van or do host or whatever it is. How are we doing today?
Good.
Anything new and exciting? You got your notepad. It's so
I got my notepad. Yeah, today's a big day.
Yeah.
Well, we had Canadian inflation today, which was unexpectedly it went
just
down.
right in there. No,
Yeah, it went right down, and we got the Bank of Canada tomorrow.
You're just going for it. Okay.
Of course. So it's big, but yeah, this week's big.
So what's going on with it then? We could elaborate.
Well, inflation went down. I mean, it was released this morning. So the exact number that it went down by, what was it? I posted it. Exact number. It was actually forecasted to go up, but it went down to 2.3.
This is inflation went down.
Yeah, CPI.
Okay.
So that went down to 2.3, which is unexpected. People had it forecasted to go up actually at 2.
Didn't the states just do a massive hike in their?
No, their CPI actually recently went down as well.
Did it?
Yep.
Okay.
So tomorrow, I mean, on the heels of the job numbers report showing absolute bloodbath in Canada, plus
We had now
inflation going.
6 point something, or am I totally off again?
Yeah, I think we're at 6.7,
Yeah.
right? So it's gone up 0.1. So we're looking potentially very positive for Bank of Canada cut, at least 25 bips tomorrow.
I heard 50-50 chance of it. What do you think? What's your
no.
magic number?
Inflation data today becomes probably 65-35.
Think so?
It's also like you have tariff uncertainty, right? We had the 90-day pause. We watched the markets crater. Then we have Trump saying, well, we might take it off auto parts. There's too much uncertainty, so I think the Bank of Canada is going to use it as an insurance cut.
I've been trying to think about a way within the brokerage to like do a game or like a running
I got one on the
gambling. Would you put it on the chalkboard?
It is on the chalkboard. It's
No. What about Trump's tariffs? Like, what he's going to do today?
Oh,
like, what's the move today? What's this going to be? Like, but
Yeah,
it's
but the bond market slapped him back pretty hard. So,
I heard that.
Right at the end.
Yeah, that was his. I heard a Wall Street Journal podcast, and they were saying that's his pressure point. That's his.
Well,
pain
because
threshold.
it means that rates aren't going down and the cost of the borrowing on the U.S. government's going up. So
Yeah.
he wants that number to go down. So he thought if I create an artificial recession, it's going to go down. But what he didn't count for was all the countries lining up together and selling bonds, forcing the price up, and essentially he had to stop dead in his tracks. So
It's amazing.
It was a brilliant move.
Yeah, it really was. It was, I think, well orchestrated by all the countries. They said, well, okay, we won't do reciprocal tariffs. We'll just hit you where it hurts, is interest rates, right? So.
And that's because everyone knows his grandmaster plan, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep. So yeah.
anything else you get up to this weekend besides crying over
40th
CPI?
birthday, so just cried over age. But other than that, we're good.
Brian, what about you?
Kids sports, my friend. Yeah, it's a busy time. We got
Sports?
baseball, we got soccer, we got tennis, we got swimming.
How's your youngest liking baseball?
Loving it.
Really?
Yeah.
My son lasted his season. He's like, this is the most boring thing I've ever done.
Yeah, it was an iffy one to get him to go, and now he's having a ton of fun with it. So it's funny how quickly they can adapt.
It was one of those nice Vancouver weekends. The sun was out. It was good to go.
Springtime.
I got the car out. I got to cruise around. Got the stereo fixed. It was a good weekend. So,
There you go.
okay, our first story of the day, or first, I guess, article. Not really stories, but it was released today that Realtor.ca, which everyone's gone to, is now showing sold prices, and they're finally breaking down that wall. Because remember when it came out a while ago, and you could, if you're a realtor, and sorry, we'll try to explain this clearly. If you're a realtor, you could share sold prices, but people would have to like log into your website. It was called a virtual office. It was just some stupid thing that Korea made with all of it.
Yeah.
Did you ever do that, Brian?
I didn't. I got pitched many times by different tech companies wanting
Yeah.
to say that this was a way, but ultimately, I think there was even Pixie Links was doing that. Was it Fisherly that was one of the first to try and go that route? The sold data is, I think, a very crucial aspect of information that the consumers need to know.
I'm surprised it took so long to get this out there. Like, we're in 2025 now, and you finally are releasing sold data?
NIMBY's a real thing, whether it's development or whether it's realtors thinking that they need to hold on information. But I mean, with Zillow and the rest and all the American companies and tech going that way, it's becoming heir apparent for them to be able to scrape. So why not be able to scrape the sold and be able to provide that information to the consumer to at least have better maybe markers of what is value?
First thing every neighbor's going to do is go Google or check on Realtor.ca what their neighbor bought for. That's what I'm going to do.
But I think, hasn't the sold data been available under BC assessment?
Yeah.
If you log in
for a
under
while.
assessment, you can log in and you can get the 5 years of history on the home.
I don't always
too,
count the numbers, and most people just won't do that. It's that extra step. But if it's just on Realtor.ca app on your phone now,
Sure.
then get in.
Sure.
Question for you: this day and age, I don't want to pry too hard into your marketing and everything, but do you feel that it's worth having? Because I have an opinion on this. Do you feel like consumers ever go, and you have a high-ranking website, lots of traffic and everything else, do you feel people ever go to your website to search?
They may, yes. I mean, I see that somewhat from the back end of the system at the end of the day, but I don't think that a standard realtor site is really a search engine, if you would, right? So if you talk to, I mean, I always would have the conversations holding open houses, where did you see the listing, right? It was REW and Realtor.ca.
Exactly.
So that's, I mean, there's a few that use Zillow. I've heard that a bit more, but it's not as prevalent up here as it is down south.
We're trying to starve out Zillow. Zillow's not even, don't even mention the Z word. That's like, mentioning you got a disease. So where do you go, James?
I mean, we're lending based, so it's completely different.
When you're curious, when you go to YVR Global to search, or do you go to...
No, I'd go to Realtor.ca on the app, check it out.
I think that's where like your
Home
average...
HomeSpotter is actually a good one.
HomeSpotters?
HomeSpotter is probably one of the best ones that I've seen recently.
Who else in the room? Where do you go? Kat? REW?
Because it's also the mortgage breakdown.
Okay.
But I can tell you those
But
calculators are
REW isn't as good as
absolute
it used to
garbage.
If
Yeah.
you don't know where to start, I feel like it's...
Fair enough.
Yeah.
REW had big market share 5 to 10, 8, 9 years
I
ago.
don't even think about REW anymore.
No, their business model has changed.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are kind of getting away from it.
Do you know who owns Realtor.ca?
Please enlighten us.
Korea.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And I just mentioned last week that we should move away from them. I take it back. They actually have one thing of value. So we should not leave Korea. Actually, we need their damn website. That's all I want to do. Touch on that. I think it's a great thing for consumers. I think that we need to get this wall down. And I just think knowing what places cost going into it before you even call a realtor will educate a lot of people. Because you would deal with this all the time, Brian. You got Joe Schmo selling his place down on Marina side here, and he's going, I want $8 million for this. And you're going, it's a $1 million place. Nope. Bob down the hallway, he told me he sold for 6, so I get it. And it's just a bunch of crap, right?
Yeah, I think it's easy for sellers to stare at numbers of other times and assume that that's still value, right? So in theory, it should ultimately help both buyers and sellers get a better understanding of where the market value is.
Hopefully, yeah.
Right? We see a fair big difference on assessed values to market value. In 2015, you would do tours with buyers that would come through our listings, and they would have every single assessed value of the property, attached to it.
How far off do you think assessed values are right now? And does everyone doesn't know, you go to BC assessment and all that everything, that's where your tax values are. You can go find it any day you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on certain assets, they can be swings of 10, 15%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easily.
100%. Yeah.
I'd say more.
Yeah.
Right?
If you get into the luxury segment, maybe more. But I mean, I think for the most part, the standard inventory is probably 10 to 15%
I was
off.
talking about this in training last week, but if you go to my house, which is out in South Surrey, the picture's 15 years old now.
Yeah.
Right? It's like an old JPEG pixelated thing with like an old RV in front that I don't know where the hell that came from. So I don't know. The BC assessments certainly are what they used to be and can't. So that's why I think it's good that Realtor.ca is finally giving you this data to
Real time.
educate people and let them actually know instead of guessing or talking to your neighbor or, Joe Schmo. Well, my uncle watches a lot of, what's that saying? My uncle watches a lot of home improvement shows. He could probably tell you which
God.
home's worth, right?
Yeah.
I hate those damn things. The rise of the pre-sale buyer. Are pre-construction homes a smart move with the risk, rewards, timelines, and how they work in BC? It's a tough question considering who our parental mothership company is, but what do you think?
I mean, I think you've got to sort of segment the market.
We just had, by the way, sorry, not to segue here, we talked about this last week about a bunch of buyers in Toronto who are now saying that they're underwater.
Yeah.
And they want their money back. So this is kind of a good way to roll into this.
For sure. And I mean, I think you've got to look into very specific areas if pre-sale is going to make sense at the end of the day, because there's a lot of opportunity for massive developers throughout Burnaby right now. You look at Surrey, some of the massive the density that's coming to there. You go out to Langley, a lot of people are excited about the train line going out to Langley. Maybe the price points make it more attainable for first-time buyers. The rents there tend to look decent, but I think if you're an investor or you're a first-time buyer and you're going to buy pre-sale, you have to do your research, right? If you're going to make that type of investment, you better mind your money when you're buying and make sure that you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's not the guarantee it was 10 years ago, right?
100%.
It was just guaranteed. Buy a pre-sale and
15
make
years
money.
ago, you'd walk in and walk out and you're up $100,000 on your buy.
Exactly.
Right? So
literally
you
wait in line. Remember when the lineups are around the corner?
800 people
are
long.
fighting each other. And
this
the
is my
ladders-
file.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
100%. If you
Those
don't
were
get
the
the next
good old
person,
days,
that was the
Every Joe Schmo that got their license. Well, so what do you want to do with your life? I'm going to get into pre-sales. I'm going to get into pre-sales. I've been hearing that from 10 years ago.
But if you think about realtors too, you look at how many realtors portrayed themselves as pre-sale experts.
Yeah.
Show me how their clients have done recently. Show me how they have done recently.
Show me how you're a pre-sale expert.
Well, I mean, that's what I touched on last week. Is we had that realtor in North Vancouver did no pre-qualifications. Now, I mean, what happened? I mean, I'm looking at it like twofold right now. Is there's going back on Toronto, they're asking for bailouts now. Mm-hmm. So we're getting developers, we're getting buyers looking to the
Ron, the
government.
mortgage
for
guy was
bailouts.
talking about this on his little thing.
So I mean, we're talking that that could become a political hot topic to say, well, okay, we'll bail out developers. I mean,
Sorry, just to backtrack here. Why? So developers in Toronto,
Yeah.
after all their heydays that they had of just
nobody's
making
closing.
money hand over fist, now they're crying
Yeah.
bloody murder in that.
Well, they are, because you've had all these people who purchased and they can't get a mortgage or qualify. I mean, we just had one recently. Last week we got the appraisal back, and it was 90,000 under what she purchased it.
So what happens?
So,
what
I mean-
happens when it's a $90,000?
Well, her down payment of 127 grand is evaporated. She now only has 5% equity in the property, and she will have to close as insured. I mean, CMHC recently did this, that if you purchased a new property, you could close on it with 5% down, assuming that it wasn't your first home. So we're looking at that as the only way to get them out.
But doesn't she have to come up with the 90 grand to make that difference?
Well,
Like,
she
you feel
already
you'll
came
land-
up with they already came up with the 20%.
Okay.
But whereas initially when we got the
Oh, I
approval,
see. Out of the
right,
deposit, it all drained away.
the deposit,
equity. Okay.
it's the deposit that's gone.
Yeah.
She doesn't need to come up with more money other than the standard closing costs, PTT, legal fees and that. But it's essentially her property. She's lost 15% equity overnight, right? Because the property came back 90,000 under what she paid for it. But the reality of where the problem was, it was a very one of these realtors that said, yeah, you and your friends are going to make money. She got 5 of them in and didn't get qualified. And I was like, why are you not getting qualified? Now, the other side of it is if you're a purchaser right now, developers are willing to throw everything at you. And, the kitchen sink, we'll give you 20,000 off as a decorating allowance. We're going to throw in this, throw in this, throw in
Free
this.
EV charging, free
Exactly.
upgrade.
So, I'm looking at it as an opportunity, as to say a first-time buyer right now, is to go to a developer and say, well, down the street, there's a place for $850 and there's no GST. Now, I mean, again, we may see whoever gets elected, it's coming off either at $1 million or 1.3, so we'll wait to see. But if you're in that sub-million right now, you have all the bargaining power. And I think there are going to be some really good deals out there to be had for people to get in, saying, well, that one's $850, yours is $899, $850 or I walk, and the developer will probably give them that $850.
How are lenders today looking at pre-sales? Like, are they looking at it being like
Extreme caution.
extreme caution?
It's everything needs an appraisal regardless, even if it's insured, right?
5 years ago, how was this? This is just
I was fine, right? All appraisals were coming in. Nobody really had a concern about it, but now we're, it's like full appraisals, enter the unit, enter the site, that they are not being, auto appraised, right? If you're an insured buyer, typically you don't need an appraisal. they're on everything. So pre-sale requires 100% appraisals, whereas before it didn't.
Well, dating myself, but some of these appraisers back in the day, they'd show up in their Lexus, Jaguar, BMW. They'd do down the window and like check it out, be like, "Yep,
Drive-bys.
a house is here,"
Yeah.
and drive away. And that was their like appraisal.
Yeah, they call it drive-bys,
Yeah.
right? So that's still there today, is a drive-by appraisal.
That's the good old days.
Yeah, I mean, a drive-by appraisal, you would see it on tax assessed, let's say $1 million, and the client owes $200,000.
Sure.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, even
Sure, there's an actual
if it's
structure.
make sure it's a structure. There's not a grow up. You're looking for general condition of the property that it's standing. Things like that. I've seen some weird ones in my days where it was drive-by and the roof wasn't there and things were kind of going on that way. But those still exist.
Well, are you steering any of your clients towards pre-sales right now? Buyers, are you helping any with those? Or just kind of dried up and kind of, because it was such a topic of conversation for people were making websites, this is all I do, and I'll go wait in line for you, and it was such a surefire thing. It was also kind of like, you just said that the lady in your question that is underwater, she had 5 units?
No.
Oh.
The realtor that represented her and 5 of her friends was the realtor that said, "Yeah, you're all going to make money. You're going to make like $90,000."
Because I
So
felt
Just a question for you on that. Does that type of sales not sound unsimilar to pump and dump at the end of the day?
Totally
Where
is.
everybody's going to make money. Come with me.
Absolutely.
I'm the Pied Piper.
Yeah.
And let's see how this plays out years
Didn't
later.
the Hawk 2 girl make everyone buy her coin? Then
Right?
she's
Yeah.
like, I
So
didn't.
this is the challenge with the idea of being a quote unquote pre-sale expert, because you are an expert at get people to buy a certain product, but you give them all risk. They take on all risk. You
100%.
It just no one has been a pre-sale expert for decades on decades, because in the rise and fall of the booms, the bottoms of those guys, there isn't weight to them.
Exactly.
They just keep going because what they pitched did not work out.
Well, anyone could have said they are, because, hey, look at my last clients. They bought 6. They made 60% equity in a day. Well, of course they did, right? Well, you all were. Anyone could have.
I think that pre-sales have kind of, in this market at least, it's, it's like location, right? There needs to be something unique about it. And what we're seeing in Toronto is they built these massive towers with 530 square foot units, built a ton of them. Percentage of the building was all of them. Everybody said they're going to make money, and now they're not, right? And there's
They
nothing
lied.
unique about a 530 square foot studio apartment on what is it, Bay Street. But if you're looking at pre-sales now, you would say, okay, what's unique? Where's the location? Is it near transit? Like what
Is it
are the densities? Is it waterfront?
What's the
Right?
quality?
Who's the builder, right? So you're doing a lot more research, as you should, and I think to Brian's point, these quote unquote pre-sale experts, they're not experts. I think they're in a way it's like when we have a saying in our business, it's like that's a predatory loan, predatory lending. That's, I think, in my opinion, predatory selling. That it's using somebody's weakness to make a quick buck. For the profit of the realtor. But the reality is, if BCFSA doesn't step up, if your real estate board doesn't step up and reprimand these people, or that clients that have been harmed potentially say, like, they didn't walk me through what I needed to do, they didn't do their fiduciary duty, there should be repercussions. And maybe the best thing that can come out of Toronto and Vancouver is that there is some kind of guidelines to these pre-sale realtors, because there's guidelines for us on predatory lending, right?
Yep.
Criminal interest rates, not doing appraisals, not getting income documents, notice of assessments, making sure they don't owe money to CRA, which could overtake first position on title. So it's like we have these as lenders representing public money. I mean, at the same time, I think realtors should have some kind of repercussion on these types of pre-sale deals, because they're representing public interest.
And the funny thing is, the BCFSA, if you don't know what the I can't speak today. The BCFSA is the British Columbia Financial
Service
Service
Authority.
Authority. And there are regulators, and we kind of gripe on them. Well, there's a reason, right? But they are actually going after developers and are doing more stringent rules on their disclosure needs and the rescission periods and everything else. But they're not going after, once again, the realtors and saying, hey, do you know what you're actually selling? Do you know what your product is
Yeah.
and everything else, right?
Yep.
Back to you, Brian. Sorry, we got side tangent. Are you lead steering any of your buyers towards pre-sales with extreme caution, maybe?
I think with fundamental research, like I had clients that bought a penthouse unit on a build in 2022, and that was probably one of the best returns that I've seen.
Sure.
But it also made sense for the time because they were going to step up the ladder, right?
Yep.
So I think what you have to understand is what is the purpose of the purchase, and does that fall into potential long-term planning? Because if the purchase is solely on making money, you've got to really think about that at the end of the day.
Well, the
right?
best example for you is you were, and we're not going to name names or do anything or specifics, but you had a owner who bought at a pre-sale, and that owner would not really heed advice from everybody, had their own idea about what this place was worth, and in the end, they're just not moving the product at what they thought they were going to at one point, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, people will possibly perceive value, or as we see in real estate in climates like we're in, they'll go to their network
Yep.
to get opinions on what their network
it.
thinks the value is.
Bob the plumber, my uncle, he knows what this place is
Right.
worth.
So, and we see that often. I mean, it's not abnormal in these type of climates because I think people feel that they're wanting to make the right decision, but sometimes the individuals that they're going to help maybe affirm that decision aren't knowledgeable.
Exactly.
At the end of the day.
Exactly.
And somebody that had a run, maybe that run made them money, but that doesn't mean that they're an expert.
Well, they're a pre-sale expert, and they're giving you the advice. Or they got to go to realtor.ca now to check their goddamn sales price, right? Pre-sales. We were just at the UDI lunch, the Urban Development Institute lunch last Thursday, I think it was. Yeah. And they were talking about the transit line and going through there, and there was a lot of discussion about the development that they're building there. And it was interesting because the mayor of Langley, incredibly young guy, the township of Langley, he was stating, oh, no, you don't need parking, you're going to have the transit line. And they had one of the developers on stage, and he was stating, pretty much saying, you're nuts. We need the development. We need to get this. We need to have parking attached to these. Because although you have transit line there, we're just talking about pre-sales on the transit line, you're still in the suburbs, right? You're not downtown. You're not Vancouver. You're not.
Typically, outside of what the property is, when it comes to a condominium purchaser, what are the musts? Parking and a balcony at the end of the day. Like those are literally of
Absolutely.
the items, those are high priority items. And I know the city of Vancouver relaxed to the point where maybe 65-70% of the suites had parking, so they got to a
Yep.
point where the developers, and it costs the developer a ton of money when they're subterranean. When they're building down, those parking stalls can be hundreds of thousands of dollars it costs them in construction.
Well, how
so
many-
for the developer, it's cheap to not have to do parking. They love the concept, but the purchaser that's buying that property with no parking near a transit line, keep in mind, you're likely only able to sell that to an investor at exit.
Exactly.
Because the end user that's gonna have the car, they're not gonna wanna buy it.
Yep.
But I mean, it goes to the point, like, we don't even have 24-hour transit, so why are we eliminating parking stalls? It's just assuming that everybody's gonna magically get an Uber?
At least we actually have Uber now.
Well, I mean,
How many years did that take?
Vancouver came out of the
Stone Age.
archaic times to do that, but
Fred
I've
Flintstone
never
going down the
understood
road.
it.
Yeah.
It's people require cars. We don't have the transit system to, fulfill capacity. We don't have the infrastructure to take all the cars. So it's like right now we don't have a solution, and it's going to take 10 to 20 years to build out any type of transit. I mean, just going to the North Shore. I mean, like, it's like, how do we get off? the North Shore?
I think the North Shore District North Van is looking at approvals for 22,000 new homes coming up.
Really?
Okay, so
Awesome.
Quadreal owns the Capilano Mall. What did they want to do there for? 14 towers?
Yeah.
Right?
Cat ball?
Yeah.
It's not even that big of a space.
Oh,
there.
it's a large
It's
parcel.
big, yeah.
But when you look at the
I've been there
amount
like
of development
20 years,
that
so.
the district said no to, and now they're being forced by the province to have to look at densifying. Well, before you densify, you need infrastructure. It's kind of like Canada. You bring all these people in over the last 5 years and open up the floodgates, and now our hospitals are overrun. We don't have the infrastructure. It's the exact opposite thing to do for growth.
That's a perfect segue into another article here where there was something called Calgary. The headline of the article was Calgary and Vancouver among 27 cities, to receive the Housing Accelerator Fund bonus. Have you ever heard of this?
Yes.
It was introduced to the budget in 2022. I'm just going to read you a quick blurb about this so we can all understand what it is. The Housing Accelerator Fund, HAF, is an incentive program where local governments can receive funding in exchange for making changes to policy, processes, zoning, for example, that facilitates creation of more housing. This would be a good segue for North Vancouver. Upon application, local government and the federal government sign an agreement that ties the funds to those changes. As part of the agreements, the recipient also outlines a 3-year and 10-year housing goal they're targeting using those funds. Sounds like an upright plan. We know we got something going on. The Housing Accelerator Fund launched with a pool of about $4 billion. That's already a bad sign. I'm sorry. It costs $1.5 billion to build a tower these days. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The government of Canada opened application in March 2023, then began making fund announcements in September 23. Has now reached agreements with over 150 local governments. Guess how much money Vancouver's receiving?
Vancouver proper.
Vancouver just said Vancouver, not North Vancouver.
Don't tell me less than $100 million.
Oh, it's significant.
I think I made like $5 million. Can we get a new spinning chandelier?
4.3 million.
$4.3 million from the government
million.
of Canada.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Great work. How much did Calgary get?
So could we actually, could that, would it be possible to look into that and see how much of that went east and how little of that came west?
All they talked about was I could see Calgary. There's some other ones. Like Calgary was the highest.
Of course.
22 million.
Yeah, because you can do housing starts in Calgary and people will buy them.
Have you ever driven in Calgary though?
I haven't been to Calgary. I've never been to Calgary.
It's a freeway.
Never.
They have a freeway, so you get on it, and there's, for most of the time, there's not a crazy amount of traffic.
And ring
you
roads
can move around, and it's just all ring roads, and then they have the internal C trains. When I was going to university there, it was the easiest place to get around. Now try to get around Vancouver.
Well, you just go down a major highway into a
but like they've destroyed Nelson, they've destroyed Davie, they've destroyed Richards, they've destroyed Granville, they've destroyed Howe. I don't really know how to get out of Vancouver anymore, except for taking these roads and trying to hop on a bridge.
You were at the lunch with me, and the CEO of Anthem was talking about Vancouver.
Yeah.
You come over Granville Street Bridge under construction, going 30 kilometers an hour. You hit Granville, you turn left, and you go to what his exact words. You end up at fucking Howe Street, and it's blocked, so you have to turn left, and you end up back on the Granville Street Bridge. You're going back across. It's just insane,
it's a mess.
Right?
Pender Street, I go to the gym every morning. Pender Street, I think, has been under construction for 11 years. It's remarkable. It's it's paved,
It
then it's not paved.
At the
Then
same
they jack
time,
it up.
you've got 3 bridges into downtown. You've got the Burrard, you've got Granville, and you've got Cambie. So you're saying the Cambie Bridge is under construction and the Granville Bridge is under construction. So
Yeah.
you've got 3 bridges into downtown.
Oh no, it's insane.
Of which 2 are under construction.
Yes.
That's well thought out.
But regardless, going back to this, it's just this stuff bothers me, right? Because you're so out of touch. You get 4.3. That probably doesn't even cover the labor it took to do this, to now bring the money into Vancouver.
Or the individual that applied to get that money.
Exactly, right? But 4.3 million, it's so low. It's
a joke.
What do you buy for 4.3 million construction these days?
They would be
a
better
new spinning
off.
chandelier. That's
That
what I've
thing
been
is
saying
probably
the whole
more. Probably
time.
more.
Well, they sold it for $5, but I mean, you could buy a new one.
They sold that thing?
Well, yeah, Brian mentioned they sold it for $5. The city bought
It cost them $5. It was all part of the community art aspect that they had to
Raise
do.
your hand if you've actually seen it move.
In the beginning.
Once.
In the beginning.
You seen it move?
I can see it out my windows.
Oh, because that's cheating then, right? If you got 24 access to the thing when
So
it
you
works
look at
5
it
minutes a
24 hours.
month.
We expect a video next podcast.
When you and can you show all the repair people constantly
Yeah,
going to
right.
it? That'd be a great one as well. I bet you see more.
Are we talking
repair
about the
people.
building or the?
No, the
Ooh.
stupid thing under the bridge. Well, yeah.
Quality counts.
Exactly. One more story this is a bit left field and maybe not our full bread and butter of what we're talking about. But this has come up like 4 times in my news feed over the past while, is that the City of Vancouver is redoing its hotel development policy. And they need to build 10,000, they said, hotels over the next 10 years, 10,000 hotel rooms to keep up with demand of Vancouver. Do we believe that? Considering we just had the talk last week about Granville, lowest visitors year over year since COVID, whatever it was. It's shooting down. And so this spins out in many different ways. Now, one, when they did this hotel policy change, the current hotel union went to the City of Vancouver City Hall, and they all protested, saying against it, because we need to build affordable housing. Prioritize that. Okay, because the hotel workers have to drive 2 hours to get in to get the hotel. I get it. It's not attainable. It's just kind of like when the whole COVID happened and we couldn't get baristas down to the Starbucks because of all the rising rents and everything else. But I don't know. This goes into so many levels because now we have for tourism coming to Vancouver. Have you tried to book a hotel room besides anything downtown Vancouver? It's insane. It's so expensive. Besides your Taylor Swifties coming and everything, if there's an event in Vancouver during the summer and everything else, you can kiss a hotel room in Vancouver, or it's extortionate. But wouldn't we want to build more for construction?
Isn't tourism good for a local economy?
That's what I thought.
Right.
And don't you
If
want to bring
if
people
think
here so
about
it's
it,
not a bloodbath
So
between...
we built a convention center for the Olympics.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, instead of just localized groups, isn't it beneficial to attract international groups?
Exactly.
To come in and consume and go to restaurants that locals can't afford to go to, right?
And
Like
if you
from an economy standpoint,
Yes.
wouldn't it be beneficial to bring in capital that's elsewhere in the world to come and enjoy time in Vancouver? When we had the Olympics, was Yaletown not voted one of the top 5 neighborhoods in North America
Was it?
by USA Today?
Was it?
It was a huge article. I mean, if you think of the boom that stuff like tourism can do for a city and for a region, or if the government says, no, we won't do Airbnb and we won't allow you to do this. Oh, no, we can't build hotels because our workers can't drive there.
Mm-hmm.
If we restrict and restrict and restrict and restrict, that capital doesn't come.
Well, you got to build and spend money to make money, right? So it creates jobs by building hotels, the land, everything else. But also then doesn't it push down Airbnbs because they wouldn't be as valuable if you had more hotels? Or is
The
this
civic zoning of Vancouver had always prior to recent with the new provincial rules, the civic zoning on residential was always a 30-day term. So short-term rentals were never legal in COV.
Yeah.
Right? But hotels, it's tough because even the government during COVID bought a number of hotels within the city to turn into SROs. So we
SROs
reduced
are
single room occupancy units.
single room occupancy units. Okay.
To me, like I honestly look at, you're getting municipal government having one direction, you get provincial government having another direction, you get the federal government
Not
wherever
giving any
they
capital towards our direction.
$4 million.
But here's the reality. I don't think anybody answered. What do you actually want Vancouver to be?
I don't
Like,
think
what do
anyone
we
knows.
want? But see, there it is.
We were
Nobody
a shining
wants-
star during the Olympics and we faded
But
away.
Vancouver has so many issues that just don't make any sense. We want more affordable housing, but we hate developers. We don't want hotels, but we want tourism.
We take billions of dollars from land
We don't
transfer
want
tax and
we
put it
take
towards
billions from these taxes. Then we eat the rich or whatever. We don't want internationals. We don't want foreigners, but we need their money. It's like, what the hell do you want? And the reality of, I think, what Vancouver is going through right now, and I think it's just going to get exacerbated by the potential of a further deep recession, at least in Canada, because, we're looking at every metric, and I said last week, we failed at every single one. You looked at Vancouver
That was a
in
good
terms
clip,
of
by the way.
quality.
That was a really good clip.
It was a
Powerful
heated
words.
clip, but let's go on the quality of life. We have sunk from 18th to 33rd. Like that's
In what?
For quality of life
Okay.
from respondents. So
Weren't we at high at a 5?
we were the highest. We were at a 5. Then we were at 18. Now we're at 33. So
That
you're
was
looking.
post Olympics though, wasn't it? Like 2012-ish?
But what was what was different, right? What was different in 2010, right? What was you look back to when people were happier and the things that you had less government, you had more free markets, but less taxes and cost of living was completely different than it is today.
Do you think Vancouver has an identity crisis? at this time?
100%. I absolutely think we do. You have a mayor that has been, arguably the most progressive mayor in, last 15 years in Vancouver. He just lost 2 seats to to the Socialist Party of Vancouver, and the guy is a known communist. So you're looking at that saying what's happening?
Is this
And
fact checked or?
100% it is. It's
Okay.
fact checked, right? And you're looking at saying, well, now you have a self-declared socialist communist on the Vancouver City Council who is being paid.
Share the wealth.
Well, that's kind of where
But
I'm
I
saying
think the fabric is, unfortunately, and the reality is, as we're seeing with the federal election too, that the fabric isn't all just one-sided anymore. Yeah. Right. And so it's difficult because Spencer Herbert, when he came out as the NDP MLA for the West End and redoing what was the rental task force within the province at the end of the day, there have been some measures that have been tried to be helpful, but the challenges in doing that. You will spur and again, look how many cranes are in Vancouver proper. So you won't create
There's not many
development.
right now, though.
No,
There's none.
and you won't see development.
We do even have one, I think, down in Cole Harbour, last time I saw.
That's the city.
That's a rental
owns-
building.
It's a rental building?
That's a rental building at the Cole Harvey Community Center.
Yeah, isn't
So
that
that's
just the
right? That's
daycare?
a 12-story rental building with an elementary school down below.
Yeah. No, it's going to be beautiful. Don't get me
Wasn't it
wrong.
originally supposed to be an SRO?
Well, at
Kennedy
the end of the day, but I mean, think of what that land is and what you could build elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like you could have sold that land for hundreds of millions of dollars and done, hundreds of millions of dollars of site elsewhere for people that need it.
So do you think if they brought in 10,000 more hotels, that would lower? I'm not an Airbnb expert.
How do you won't get that number?
There's no chance. It's
The-
like
the-
trying to build
the land cost and construction cost right now. Think of it. Who owns the where the Four Seasons was? Or it was the one
Wondering on Howe or whatever
on,
down
on
there?
Howe.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Cadillac Fairview.
Right?
That it was?
And
Yeah.
so how many years has that been derelict now, just sitting there? It was going to be announced as something. It was going to be announced as somebody. If you can't refit a pre-existing hotel and have it back operational instead of 12 or 18 months, and that's been like that for years now. We're talking 3 or 4 years at least.
Has it?
Of
Oh,
course.
yeah.
It's been
I
stripped
never
out,
get
windows
there,
are
yeah.
off. It's just,
Windows
it's
are
just
out.
brutalist architecture,
Yeah.
concrete sitting there.
Oh,
and they're
really?
not
So
doing
it's,
something.
it's down to the studs. It's
Windows
gonna
are
be
out.
drained.
Yeah.
So what's the holdup?
They said they were going to do some new hotel, but whether there's been any movement on it,
They're
it's
waiting
not
for this
been
$4
public.
million to really, lift that place up.
Well, think of the casino.
Tragic.
I mean, that was how much money did that operator end up losing and having to get out of town, right? When they were going to the casino and it's going to
tell me.
the park hotels and the rest. Like it's difficult when you look at
I thought the Park Hotels was a massive success. I was in
how much
I was,
money,
I
how
was in
much
Coquitlam when all
research
that
after this, how much money that the American developer lost on doing that casino.
Really?
Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars.
happened. Right? Listeners,
Right?
Google that.
So at the
Park
end of the
Casino
day,
loss.
if companies cannot make money, capital is fluid. They will go to opportunity that will allow them to make money.
But I mean that comes to the point though. Like right now, I mean when you're looking at Vancouver's identity crisis. Okay, we don't want foreign buyers. We don't want this. We don't want this. It's like, well, what do you want, right? Foreign buyers and foreign investors bring in foreign capital that is not Canadian generated and Canadian taxed. So you need them to inject money in the local economies. But if you're going to vilify
But don't
them,
buy anything.
But don't buy anything.
Yeah.
Just come here
not allowed-
and,
you're not allowed
stay
to
in
buy
one of our
anything.
hotels for $1,200 a night and then get out, right? It
Exactly.
just doesn't make any
It's
sense.
a perfect plan. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think our country has an identity crisis right now, and I think this city doesn't even know what it wants, and I think it's a great, just looking at, Ken Sim being that most progressive mayor, and then now you have a communist in the, like, what the fuck is happening? I mean,
You're
it
in a
just doesn't
communist
make any
story.
sense.
I think Ken Sims coming in and doing like we talked about last
Doing the
week.
best he can,
But-
honestly, with what he's given.
He actually took the time to analyze Granville Street, to
Mm-hmm.
see like, hey, this is our path forward. These are the things that are happening. This is how do we generate this tourism? Because we've been worrying about these yacht cruise ships coming in, everything. We built everything down there, but like, what else is going to draw people here?
But here's another point, though. You say about the cruise ships, right? That's a $3.2 billion industry of the province. You have David Eby, who's threatening truckers going through British Columbia with a toll. Then you had the Alaskan governor say, if you do that, I will make no cruise ship stops in Vancouver permanent. And he was the one that actually prevented cruise ship stops, got it all the way through the Congress and Senate during COVID. So they bypassed us, and he says, I'll make that permanent. So here's your problem. You have a city mayor who's trying to attract more investment in Vancouver, and then you have a crazy guy in the province who's actively trying to destroy it, and then you have
Willing to toss a $3.7
It's-
billion a year.
it's like
into
what
a-
happens. I mean, and then you look at like what's going on in Gastown. The other day you had 2 police officers set on fire.
Ridiculous.
And all they did was tase the guy because they're scared of getting prosecuted for shooting him. And I mean, it's like the reality of what's going on in Vancouver is it's ripping apart at the seams because it's truly having its identity crisis, and it's no one level of government is working together in anything.
No, I
and
could
it's
agree
truly
with that.
sad.
Right? I think most people can agree with that right now when they take a look at it. But there you go.
Yeah.
That's our segment for today. We go late to late.
The
We
weather's
like to
great.
go there
Happy.
politics and drag
Well,
in
I look forward to sunnier weather.
Yeah.
Comrade
Brian's outta here.
James. So,
Yeah.
that's it for today. Listen in, do your thing, and we will be back next week. We'll talk about communists and politics a bit more.
There you go.
Getting closer.
Getting close. Hey, debates on the 17th.
Is it?
French